I just wanna be your morning light, and the sun come up with you by my side. I just wanna be your morning light. The fire burns down and the embers slow, but I never get cold when it's you I hold. When the fire burns down and the embers slow. Everything in my world is yours. 'Cause when I met you, I met a universe. I just wanna be your morning light, and the sun come up with you by my side. I just wanna be your morning light.
Good evening. My name is Meg Matthews, President of CAMDEN High School Student Body. On behalf of our students and staff, I welcome you to tonight's induction celebration honoring 7 very accomplished individuals to the Hall of Fame class of 2019. Tonight, we recognize them for their exemplary service not only to our school, but to our community, state, and nation as well. Their efforts help us remain the best all high school anywhere and give meaning to the phrase, one team, one town, one goal. We hope you enjoyed tonight's event, and remember, once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Denaya, and I was wondering if you guys could please bow your head for the invocation. Dear Lord, thank you so much for gathering us here today. Please bless this food to our bodies and allow us to keep you in our hearts and minds. Thank you for these men and women that have done your work in and away from our community. In Jesus' precious name, we pray. Amen.
I am Leslie Corner, the proud principal of CAMDEN High School. On behalf of the school and our School Improvement Council, I welcome you to Camden High School's Hall of Fame presentation. The School Improvement Council of Camden High School has created a Camden High School Hall of Fame to honor alumni whose accomplishments, deeds, and character exemplify outstanding achievement in their life's work and/or service to the community. This award may also honor individuals who did not graduate from Camden High School, but who have significantly and consistently contributed to the work and mission of our school. Graduates of Jackson High School may also be nominated for this award. At this time, I would like to recognize some special guests. And we're going to start with Mr. Tim Hopkins, if he could stand. He is our Deputy Superintendent of Kershaw County School District. We also have Mr. Dan Matthews, Director of Secondary Education for Kershaw County School District. And I have my two partners in crime, Mr. A.C. Collins, Assistant Principal at Camden High School, and Mrs. Terilyn Lee, Assistant Principal at Camden High School. And my work brother, Officer Big Boy Anderson. We also have some representatives from our government here. General Julian Burns, Chair of the Kershaw County Council. And Representative Terry Alexander from South Carolina, District 59. At this time, I would like any previous inductees who are here with us tonight to please stand so we can give them a round of applause. And we have some media representatives with us tonight. Mr. Johnny Deal with Bowtie Photography. Mr. Curtis Ramsey, our videographer. And I haven't seen Mr. Martin Kahn. Is he with us tonight? Okay, so he is not with us tonight. Also, I would like to recognize the members of our School Improvement Council. They are listed in our program. Could they please stand at this time? And additionally, we have some representatives from our student government and clubs that are also listed in our program. Would they please stand at this time? Thank you. I want to thank you all for attending this event this evening. Pictures will be made after the event, so please be sure to stick around to get your photography. And at this time, we will begin our induction. I would like to welcome Marley Marsh, daughter of William Buster Beckham, to the podium.
Hi. On behalf of my mom, Kathy, my brother, Griff, my sister, Mary Kate, our spouses, and our children, I am proud to be here introducing my dad, Buster Beckham, as one of this year's Camden High School Hall of Fame recipients. We want to thank our family and our friends who are like family for being here, and we like to congratulate all the other recipients out there. This is a very special night, so congratulations. When my siblings and our spouses got together to write the nomination letter for our dad, we knew most of the things that he had accomplished that we thought might make him a great candidate, starting with the fact that he had a hat trick of sorts for public service. First, serving his country as a U.S. Army paratrooper and first lieutenant in Vietnam, where he earned a Bronze Star. Then, serving his state as an appointed member of the State Board of Education, and finally serving his county as a two-time elected member of the Kershaw County School Board and the city as a city election commissioner. Our dad also had a long history as an alum and active supporter of Camden High School. As a student, he earned 5 varsity letters in 2 sports and was a member of the historic 1964 state championship football team that was undefeated and almost unscored upon. They only allowed 6 points all season and had a 13-0 record. He was also a collegiate football player, playing first at the Citadel and then as a walk-on at Clemson. After college in Vietnam, Dad came back to Camden, where he worked at Camden High School as a social studies teacher and assistant coach for 10 years before moving into the insurance business. However, his love for Camden High School and Camden High School athletics never wavered. In the last few decades, Dad has worked as the radio color commentator for CHS football, has been a member and twice served as the president of the Bulldog Club, and in that role, he was able to organize and direct the 100-year anniversary of Camden High School football. He's also organized numerous class of 1965 reunions. In the downtown Camden neighborhood, where Dad and Mom have lived for close to 40 years, Dad is known as the unofficial mayor of Boogertown, which is the name of the neighborhood, as he was one of the original organizers and cookers for the annual neighborhood block party. As my siblings and I put pen to paper and wrote out all of our dad's accomplishments for the Hall of Fame nomination letters, some of which I just mentioned, it felt a little surreal. My mom read the letter and said she thought it was good. She sort of laughed and said, "Save this, it would make a good obituary." And while this list, in our minds, made Dad a great candidate for the Camden High School Hall of Fame, it also sort of missed the essence of what makes Buster, Buster. So please allow me to share some of the other factors that make us look up to our dad. Anyone who knows my dad knows he's a tough guy, but with a really great heart. He's a big guy, but he loves big, he laughs big, and he commits big to anything he sets his mind to. As my mom, Kathy, says, he is passionate about his family, his friends, his community, and his country. He is strong, yet gentle. He is loving, caring, and generous. So, to our dad, thank you for pushing us, thank you for loving us, thank you for your dedication to our community, our country, to Camden High School, and most of all for your dedication to our family. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor. We love you, Bus.
Thank you for this great honor to be inducted into the Camden High Hall of Fame. Camden High and the Camden schools have been a big part of our family for a long time. Molly made mention in her introduction that I'd been a paratrooper in the Army. To be airborne qualified, there are 3 phases that you go through. The first phase, they separate the men from the boys. Second phase, from the boys from the idiots. The third phase, the idiots jump out the planes. She also mentioned I'd been on 2 state boards. And to paraphrase Mark Twain, he said, first God created idiots, then he made school boards. So I'd like to tell the selection committee, you got a certified triple idiot that you can put in. Although, I don't think I've quite gotten to that stage. But I may be the most lucky, fortunate guy in the world. My parents were both educators. My mother was a 3rd grade teacher. She was strict, she was hard, and I've had grown men tell me they're still scared of her. She had a creed in that every day she was going to do something to help one person. Whatever it was, she took some action, and that's a great legacy for our family. My father was, like a lot of his contemporaries, had a tough time during the Depression. In World War II, he was wounded and he spent 19 months as a prisoner of war in Germany. He never had a bad day. He was my hero, and he was the only hero I ever needed. I came along with some of the contemporaries in here at a great time. The Camden schools were exploding. DuPont, they'd gotten here, and it was just a great time. We had great teachers, like Cooter Montgomery, and I just want to name a few of them, like Cooter Montgomery, Beth Small, Rachel McGrew, Ruby Zimmerman. These were fantastic teachers, and we had solid principals in Mr. Snellgrove and also Tina DeVal. So we had good, safe schools, and don't know how much we appreciate that. Our class we were the golden class. We had state championship in football, the girls basketball team was state championship, and the band was not only the best in South Carolina, but it was the best in the South. And I had great friends, and I can't mention them all, but some of them like Bruce Rush, Charlie Wilson, Rock Montgomery. Some of them are gone now. Johnny James, Arthur Hudson, okay, and Jerry Shaheen. And Jerry and I eat lunch about every week or so. And there's also two other lifetime friends in there. Billy Emmons and I eat breakfast together most Fridays, and Sammy Small and I eat breakfast together on Saturday morning. Now, if you think about that, we've been doing that since the first grade. We've been looking across each other for 66 years now, eating meals. But they're great friends, and they've all been great contributors to Camden. When I returned from overseas, Colt Goodwin and Red Lynch were kind enough to give me a job. It was a tough time. It was the first years of integration. We worked through it. There was a lot of problems with a lot of people, and we had challenges. One of the people here tonight was one of my students, Tom Mullikin, and he'd be up here. He was a challenge. I turned my back. Tom would be in a fist fight in my classroom. Okay. Now I found and saw the prettiest girl ever that graduated from Camden High School. And after about 24 times, she finally gave in and agreed to marry me. My wife, Kathy, she's the best person I've ever known, and she is my best friend. From that, and I did want to say this too, in 1969, Kathy was the finalist in the Miss Gold and Black contest. And there were two other people who were very significant in our lives. Carolyn Horton was a finalist, and our sister-in-law, Bunny Beckham, in the back was a finalist there. So it was a good-looking group. Okay. From our union, we had three great kids, Mary Kate, Marley, and Griff. They were all Camden High people. They took advantage of it, and and obviously, like any, they were challenging. Any parent's concern, one of your big concerns is who's going to be your in-laws. Who are your kids going to marry? There, Kathy and I hit a home run. We ended up with great in-laws. We got Graham, we got Maury, and we got Gretchen. I mean, you think about this. We go Marley, Mary Kate, Maury, Griff, Graham, Gretchen. Now, compound that out with who are our eyes, our sunshine, our grandkids. We've got two pretty ladies, the two beautiful granddaughters over here, Reeves and Reese. Okay? We have to call the roll to tell people to come to lunch. Then we've got our boys, Patrick, Mac, Levi, Banks, and Caston. They are our sunshine. Our family we have benefited by being part of the Camden High family. Kathy served as the band captain. My brother Henry was the co-captain of the football team. Each of my kids, Marley, Mary Kate, and Griff, all served in some capacity as a captain on a varsity sport, okay? And one of the things we're particularly proud of is that our family had contributed to 8 state championships, 8 state champions for Camden. It's something we're immensely proud of. The Meg, I believe, said, once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog. It's true. In conclusion, it's great to be a Camden High graduate. It's the best whole high school anywhere. Here's to you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Sammy Tucker, and this is Mr. Goodwin, and I think we're looking for one more person to come forward. Here she comes now. Thank you for coming out. Congratulations, Coach Beckham. Well deserved, and congratulations to all the honorees tonight. I'm here to represent and to introduce the Chivers family, and it's kind of hard to follow this act that just took place because I don't write things out. I speak from the heart, and and off what I know personally. So I'll start off by, you're probably wondering why they're standing here, because we're going to tell some stories about Mr. Chivers and what type of man he was. Coach Beckham touched on it. He came into Camden High School during the integration, and he was the first African American or black principal that was here at Camden High. And those who are old enough remember those weren't always great times. They were trying times. Camden did a good job at it. Kershaw County did a good job at it. But I'm saying and laying this foundation because we as citizens of Kershaw County, citizens of South Carolina and the United States of America need to know whose shoulders we stand on. And Mr. Chivers is one shoulder that I think all of us in this room we stand on. Now you're going to hear me refer to him as Big Daddy, because that's who he was. As the old folks would say back in the day, he was a tall glass of water. And if you're old enough, you know what that means. Mr. Chivers had to keep him under check because she wasn't the only one who had her eyes on him. I just think it's remarkable when you can get folks back in the 60s and 70s to uproot their family and come to a strange place, don't have a relative or a friend, and take the chance and starting their young lives and making it work and falling into a community such as Camden, Kershaw County, and making so many other lives a difference, just touching each and every person that they come in contact with. That was Mr. Chivers. I'm gonna tell a quick story, and then I'm gonna let Mr. Goodwin them come up there and tell a story. I was a freshman at Camden High, early 80s, and had the opportunity, because most of my friends, Mr. Goodwin, were seniors, so I thought I could do what the seniors do. You know, when you're in Rome, you do what the Romes do. So I was in seniors' presence. That's what I did. We had senior cut day. Many of you know about senior cut day. Well, back in the day, that was Centennial Park. You get in the car, I wasn't even old enough to drive. And then you go to Columbia, you spend the day, and by me not being a senior, I'm not excused, so I'm sneaking back on campus, and guess who catches me? Big Daddy. And I'm like, Mr. Chivers, I got baseball practice. I'm going to get killed by my parents if you kick me out of school. Please don't do this. I'm begging for my life. And he said, no problem. I'll call the coach. You meet me to the office after school. My mother don't even know this story because it was never told from Big Daddy. He took care of me, gave me after school detail, made me late for practice, which means I had to run laps and so forth. But he never expelled me from school or punished me where I couldn't get my education. And that's what he was about. He was about making sure that every individual has an opportunity to get a good education. And I loved him for that and always have been able to tell that story without calling names because it meant a lot to me and it still sticks with me to this day. So I say to the Chivers family, for all of you that are here, the children, Ms. Chivers, the grandchildren, thank you for the opportunities and the times that you've given up for him being with you to mold our lives as citizens and students here in Kershaw County. Mr. Goodwin?
Thank you, Sammy, and just for information, you were not treated special. He would have done that to any student. In fact, when he and I became administrators at Camden High School at the same time, and thank goodness. Whenever things wasn't going well and I would get real upset and want to whip the world, I weighed 150 pounds at the time, maybe, and he would look at me and say, calm down, there's nothing to worry about, we'll take care of it. And when he said, we'll take care of it, his two sons are about the size that he was at the time. So I would say, yes, look at you. You'll take care of it. What's going to happen to me? So it was quite a difference. But I will say this, whether things were going well or not going well, there was one person that Camden High could always count on, and that was Mr. Chivers. And by the way, I never learned to call him Bill. It was always Mr. Chivers. And so that's That's the way that he stuck. He would chastise me sometime for not calling him by his first name, and I would say, I just can't do that. You're Mr. Chivers. I thought that was quite an honor for that important an individual to make the dedication that he did to the young people of Camden High School. And by the way, I don't care whether they were white or black, that didn't make any difference to him at all. He loved each and every one of you, and he would do anything to take care of you. Marianne, I understand you're going to say something now.
Good evening. I was a teacher at Camden High School, and most of my 17 years were in the old 600 building with the bats and the pigeons and the lack of air conditioning. But there was something really good there, and that was Mr. Chivers. He was assistant principal there, and we felt like we were under his watchful eye. I always learned a lot from him about student management and leadership. And Mr. Goodwin has covered some of those aspects, but I always admired his patience and his skills in interacting with all types of students. But here's my favorite story. I taught journalism and advised the student newspaper, the Palmetto Leaf. And Mr. Chivers was always a big supporter, as were all the administrators at Camden High School. But he really was too. So we were sitting in my classroom one day, all in a circle, and we were planning the next issue of the Palmetto Leaf. And the kids were getting excited and coming up with story ideas, and I just taught feature writing, so we were trying to come up with some good feature stories. And one young lady there said, I know, I want to do a feature story on Mr. Chivers, kind of a day in the life of Mr. Chivers. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. Yes, so how about run down there and set up an interview time when you can go talk to him. So we waited a little bit, and she came back, and she had kind of a puzzled look on her face. And she said, Miss B, Mr. Chivers asked me if it would be all right if you assigned me another story rather than a story on him. So that puzzled me a little bit, and I said, well, let me talk to him. Okay, I'll talk to him, because you never know what students are going to say, and he could have thought it was going to be something negative or something, So I went down to the office, and I said, Mr. Chivers, my student that came down here wanted to kind of, I think she wants to do a real positive story. It'll be good. It'll be a good story. And so, we sat down in his office, and he listened to me very patiently. And then he looked at me and he said, Miss B, I'm going to share something with you. I believe that a man's name should be in the newspaper only 3 times. When he's born, when he gets married, and when he dies. I've used up 2 of those, he says. And I'm not ready for the 3rd. So we both had a really good laugh about that, but I understood what he was saying. Mr. Chivers was a humble man, and he never sought the spotlight. He didn't want it. So tonight, Mr. Chivers, we're sad that unfortunately you have used up your 3 times. But I'm pretty sure you're going to have to be in the newspaper one more time. I hope you'll forgive us, Mr. Chivers, because you are so richly deserving of this honor. Thank you.
Mr. Bill Chivers, will you come forward for the family, please, sir? We'll present to you. for your father. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Say a few words. My father started his career as a science teacher at Watery Elementary School in 1958. From there, he moved on to become assistant principal at Jackson Junior High School, then assistant principal at CAMDEN High School, and on to principal of CAMDEN High School. He was always dedicated to the school district, the schools, the faculty, students. To this day, people still come up to me or other family members to talk about stories of how he impacted their lives, both on a personal and professional level. Some of the stories I found quite amusing, and they were quite funny. Stories about how the disciplinary measures that were used back in the 60s. I don't know if some of you probably remember those things. I know I was on the receiving end of some of those myself. But even after all of that, he was considered to be firm but fair. He was always an active member of the community and loved to look out for his elderly neighbors. He even shopped for groceries for some of them and even prepared meals for them. And by the way, he was a good cook too, Buster. When he wasn't working in the community doing things, he and my mom used to like to, play in the yard. He would be in his lawn, working with his lawn, and she would be with her flowers. Can't hear me? Just planting flowers and playing with, in the yard. This spilled over into the Mullikin Park area. We grew up in the Mullikin Park community. They were actually out in the park, making sure that the park was kid-friendly. Making sure the broken glass, trash, and all this kind of stuff was out of the way so the kids would have a good place to play. He was an avid reader and actually read a set of encyclopedias from cover to cover, A through Z, not once, but 3 times. I guess I could stand here and talk forever about what Big Daddy did and all the accomplishments he had, but that's more like a book. I don't know that I could stand here and talk that long, or if you would listen to me that long. So this January coming up, we'll mark 20 years since he passed away. I know that if he were here to receive this recognition, he would be pleased and very proud. So with that, on behalf of the Chivers family, I'd like to say thank you for this recognition, and the legacy continues. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Connie Davis Rouse, and this is Dr. Chandra Richardson, and we're going to talk about my little cousin, Joanie Marie Lawson. So many people on here are a part of my life, and I'm glad to be here. But I'm here to talk about Joanie. Joanie was in elementary school. She was an honor student. Middle school, she was an honor student. High school, she was an honor student. It goes without saying, when she went to North Carolina A&T, majoring in electrical engineering, she was an honor student. Then Joanie went to the University of Chicago. Joanie called me one day and she said, these students, just because they have money and their fathers have companies, they're just wasting their time here. And they're gonna lose all of their father's money. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I've got this kid in my class and he just doesn't study. He just thinks because his dad's rich, he's gonna inherit his company, he's gonna lose all of his money. And I said, what's his name? She said, Dean Witter III. That's Joanie. If Joanie does anything, she does it well. I watch Joanie from day to day at the State House as she represents the teachers, the South Carolina Education Association. Joanie loves her teachers, and if you're a teacher, she loves you, and you have the best person you can possibly have fighting for you. Joanie loves the students. I watch her walking, and Joanie loves something else too. Joanie loves to dress. When Joanie was a little girl, she wore these beautiful, beautiful dresses because Joanie has these wonderful aunts and her mom, and they would send her all these beautiful dresses, and her grandmother would buy her beautiful dresses, and she'd have buttons and bows. But the thing that I love about Joanie is that she always did right, always. If Joanie was ever presented with a choice between doing what's right and doing even what's a little wrong, she was going to always fight for right. And here's what I'd like to end with today for you, Joanie. I love you.
And then a Joanie comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you'll finally see that truth, that the hero lies in you.
I present this to you, Joanie. You so deserve it. Good evening, everyone. That is a really tough act to follow, but I am so appreciative of being here tonight and seeing everyone. Colossians 3:17 says, "And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." And of course, again, I want to give honor to God because I'm here tonight because of him, because the things that I have accomplished is because he's allowed me to be his vessel. I want to thank my cousin, Connie, for that great introduction. And of course, my family for the foundation that I got here in Camden. My son is here tonight, and a lot of my relatives are here, and my former teachers are here, and my former principal is here as well. And because of their love and support, I've been able to accomplish and persevere and do the things that they've set forth in me. I also want to honor this wonderful class, Hall of Fame class this year. Everybody is phenomenal, and I'm just really proud of them, and congratulations as well. When I received a copy of last year's program and saw that I had 4 former teachers, Ms. Metz, Ms. Blaskowitz, and Mr. and Mrs. Nabinet in there, and then my high school principal again, Mr. Goodwin, I knew that this was my EGOT, and I hope that I have made them proud of me in my life. And I know you're wondering what an EGOT is, but it's the designation that is given to entertainers. The Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, and only 15 people have ever accomplished. And so tonight, this is my EGOT. I don't think that there's any greater honor than what I'm getting tonight. I grew up 1 block from here, 811 Church Street, and I actually attended church down the street at Mount Moriah Baptist Church. So I want to borrow a phrase from Jennifer Lopez, I'm Joanie from this block. So, and being from this block, being from this town, and being from this school, I can say that I had a great public education, I had a solid religious foundation, and again, a wonderful family influence. So I am definitely bulldog proud and very, very grateful. I'm not going to go through a lot because my cousin has said a lot, but I'd like to end with a quote from Woodrow Wilson, who was the 28th President of the United States. But he also had roots here in South Carolina because he actually grew up a little while in Columbia. But he says, "You are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget your errand." So serving others is just really my errand, and I'm thankful to the Lord. And to all of you, the committee and everybody who accepted my nomination and are including me tonight. And I want to say that this, again, is just a phenomenal honor. Words really can't truly express how I'm feeling, and especially after the song, I had to really pull myself together. But from the depths of my heart, I want to thank all of you. God bless, and I am Bulldog proud.
Good evening. To the rest of you, good evening. Let me thank the committee for allowing me and for giving me this honor and this privilege to stand here. No, I am not from Camden. I am from the great city of Florence, South Carolina. So I am honored to be here and to be a part of this grand occasion for a friend of mine, and more importantly, I have adopted them, and I pray that they have adopted me as part of their family. My name is Terry Alexander, House of Representatives from District 59, that includes Florence and Darlington counties. True religion is a religion that remembers. It remembers where you've been, it remembers where you came from, it remembers how you got where you are, it remembers your journey. So I am deeply honored and privileged to be here to help Camden High School remember some of their very own. How and what can I say about my friend, Brother Mullikin? I call him Brother Mullikin, and his lovely wife, Virginia. Major General Tom Mullikin, as you all know, attended the South Carolina Public Schools. He's a 1982 graduate of, not 1982, he's a 1982 graduate of University of South Carolina, but a graduate of Camden High School. And it says here that he graduated cum laude. That means that Tom is pretty smart. Later on that year, he married his high school sweetheart, and that's so interesting. His high school sweetheart, Virginia Ann, who's I've drawn and grown closer to her over the years as she's come to the State House and lobby me and twist my arm to support her efforts. After a couple of years of working on Capitol Hill, Tom and Virginia returned to South Carolina, where he attended the University of South Carolina Law School, graduating in 1986. Since 1986, Tom's civilian law practice, as you all know, has been in the corporate, environmental, health, and safety arena. Today, as we all know, that Tom is a highly respected expert on market-based solutions for climate and environmental issues. Interesting. Tom also has had a distinguished military career. He served as the commander of the South Carolina State Guard and the president of the State Guard Association of the United States. Tom previously served as a captain in the U.S. Army Reserve Judge Advocate, General Corps. I could go on and on and on about the accomplishments of our friend and your alumnus, Tom Mullikin. But we know all about Tom. We know that Tom is not afraid to to climb the highest mountains in the world. He swam in some of the deepest seas in the world. I'm trying to figure out what makes Tom click. He goes to the highest point, and he also goes to the deepest point. But in between all of that, Tom has always kept his hand and his pulse on human nature. Tom loves people, and I've seen him over and over and over again done for folks what so many of us would never even think of doing. And there's a scripture, Tom, that says, "He's that is great. Among them, let them first serve." I consider you as being great, not in an arrogant sense, but great in the sense that you want to do the will that you've been called to do, and that is to make this place a better place. And for that, I applaud you. For Camden High School, I applaud you. And for the nominating committee, I applaud you for making my friend, my brother, a part of this great celebration. Tom in Virginia, got to do Tom in Virginia. Tom in Virginia, I applaud you, and congratulations on this evening. Blessings unto you.
Boy, to stand up in front of a group of your heroes and say these, try to come up with something to say is very difficult. I learned about forgiveness from my favorite teacher, Buster Beckham. He came into the room just shortly after one of those fist fights. I was bleeding from the mouth and the nose, and he said, "You tripped, right?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "That's good, because if you'd have been in a fight, I'd have had to send you back to the office, and I'd just come out of the hole." And if you're in Camden High School when I was there, you know exactly what the hole is. I think that was the only thing that aside from having Chris Cullors, my best friend, and he was a terrific bus driver during those years. Love you, Chris. I don't know how to put in words how honored I am by this. It's more than I could have ever imagined. I really don't feel like I stand on the same footing as those people are being inducted tonight and those that have been inducted previously. So I'm truly honored and amazed. There's so much I'd want to say just from the people that have already been recognized. Mr. Chivers is just a giant of a man. Physically, personally, he was such a mentor to so many of us, and it's so good to see y'all. And Mr. Goodwin and so many people here. If ever there was a product of public education, this is what it looks like. And I was fortunate to have come through Camden High School, having met so many wonderful people, gone on. And the truth is, I had started working at Daniels, and I'm going to talk about that. I was still suffering from the delusion in my senior year that I was going to play professional tennis, and that didn't seem like that was going to materialize. So, my dad wanted me to go to, in his words, the best school I could afford. He recommended the Army. And he knew I needed it. I think he wanted me to go in the Marine Corps because he knew I had a whole lot of growing up to do. So let me start that everything good that's happened to me is because of Jesus and my wife. Virginia Ann would tell you that we've been together since she was 15. I say 14. She corrects me because she doesn't give me credit for that year I chased her around town. But we've been together since, we'll go with 15. And that was a long time ago. And many of the people, I don't have the pleasure of having breakfast every morning, Sammy, like you and Buster, but my best friend lives next door. It's like being back in school again and seeing so many wonderful people. And I will say in front of everybody, I get on my knees every morning and thank the good Lord for my wife and my family. And on your knees is a good place to be, particularly when you were born with as little humility as I was. And let me say that Buster said I was in a lot of fights, and I didn't win any of them that I can remember. But they're all a great learning lesson for me. Born little with a big mouth, that's a bad way to come along. I want to thank all my mentors, and as I look in this room and think about those other people who've come before me, it's been tremendous because I have had greater opportunity than I could ever imagine. And I'll tell you a little bit about that, just the opportunity to get around, and I'm always happy and proud to come home. This is home. And Camden High School and the city of Camden is everything to me because they've made me everything that I am, like so many of us here. I'd start by saying that we live on ground that has produced excellence for a long, long time. You know, as I reflected on just what to say, and I don't want to be over the top, but we stand on ground where our nation's freedom was fought and won, right here, right here. And we have a long line of excellence, starting back with Andrew Jackson and the brilliance of Bernard Baruch, from the gifted diplomacy of Ambassador and former Governor John Carl West, to the recent dedication and brilliance of Speaker Bob Shaheen, to the athletic greatness of Larry Doby, to the persistence and determination of Vonnie Holliday. From the earliest days of the legend, not enough is said about King Hagler and the Catawba Nation that were here before we were, to the recent musical distinction of Claire Bryant, who now plays around the world. The halls of Camden High and these roads and these pathways that we travel have been the roads of demonstrated unimaginable determination, sophistication, grace, and success. And as for any small contribution I've made, it's a pittance in the face of such greatness. If I can offer anything or perspective, perhaps that is after traveling extensively for so many years, I can say without a moment's hesitation that we live in the most beautiful place on earth with some of the most wonderful people, interesting and accomplished, that I've ever met. And I'm always proud to be here. Our fight for independence, I'll share, and the democracy has served as a beacon. This place where we are has served as a beacon for peoples around the world, and our light will never be diminished, just like our school. I can also say that I'm proud to have raised 4 beautiful children. 3 are here tonight, and to see my beautiful grandchildren. When I left, because I think many of you know I commuted to Charlotte for a lot of years, I've sometimes asked myself about leaving that. And I come home, and now my grandchildren come down for lunch when I'm here, and it's just such a blessing. Buster, I know what you're saying. You can't really, if you want to know what love is, just if you don't have grandchildren, just wait. Because it's just a big package of love. And it's not that you can send them home when they're crying, although we do. It's that you don't feel any stress. You know, I mean, I feed them sugar at night, man. I give them Cokes and cake. Watch them run in circles. But I want to say recently I've been even more proud of my community to see us rally behind the first African-American mayor, a brilliant and beautiful leader who in my mind has overcome great challenges and whose life stands as a testimony that in our town and our state, those that desire excellence can meet any challenge. She's a testament to that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We love you. I look forward to the continued success of our community as we encourage and love each other. The last few years I was in the military, you wouldn't like this, Buster. I would stand in front of the formation and tell these folks that I love them, and man, when I first started with that, it was awful. They thought I was one of these kiss and don't tell kind of guys. We don't tell each other we love each other enough. The world that we live in is driven by hate, not by love. Love has been something that Hollywood has turned into sex, and love is what brought us all together. So in closing, let me simply say that for a young boy, many of you may not know this, born crippled for the first 6 years, I was in a wheelchair. My parents were told I'd never walk. I've now climbed some 25 of the highest peaks around the world. And I have had a few dives and lost a few toes because of it. But I carry with me a sense of determination that I learned right here among each of you about what's good. And I would tell you that the opportunities that I've had to speak around the world, I'm always happy to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Tom Mullikin, and I'm from Camden, South Carolina, the center of the universe. thank you. God bless you all, and this is a tremendous honor.
Hello, Glenn and I will share the mic while we're talking. It's such a pleasure to be here to talk tonight about one of the funniest, friendliest, and kindest persons I've known in my lifetime. My dear uncle and your Camden High School honoree of the class of 1941, the very talented artist, journalist, and cartoonist Jack Smurl.
And it is an honor for Joan and me to be speaking of Jack tonight in the presence of the two living persons that he loved best and longest in his 84 years on this earth. Let me ask to stand Jack's wife Betty and his brother Alfred Smurl. And with them, will others of the extended family of kin here tonight also stand? And may I have hands of those who may have been classmates, or friends, or acquaintances, or otherwise fans of Jack's work? If you'll just raise your hand. And I see some. Not as many as I'd like. However, if you did not know him, there is a good opportunity for you in the very near future to learn about him.
Let me say, if you have not met Jack before, you could start by looking at one of his most famous works of art over here. It looks like a map of South Carolina, which it is. But you look closely, and you're going to see a lot of signs of humor and information on that iconic South Carolina map that is one of his best-known works from his lifetime. If Jack could be here tonight and have a personal conversation with one of you he has not known, it would not be long before he knew what you were interested in. And he would have a genuine interest in that, and he would be making you feel good about yourself, even though he might have been a stranger to you. Connecting with people through kindly humor and encouragement was Jack's gift, and it was the true aim of his art. Hallmarks of both his character and his cartooning. Having spent over 17 years communicating professionally as a staff artist for the state newspaper, Jack was honored by the South Carolina legislature for his years of cartoons that, quote, lightened the hearts of countless South Carolinians.
Since Jack's passing, Joan and I have been challenged to study his life objectively through extensive research. We did so in order to write his biography, The World of Jack Smurl. The University of South Carolina Press will market the book in early 2020. Of course, a biography is incomplete unless it explores and describes the influence of real places in the subject's life. Therefore, Jack's biography includes many details of his hometown Camden and of rural Kershaw County, and certainly of Camden High School, from which students graduated then at the end of grade 11.
At Camden High School, in those years Jack was there, bridging the Great Depression and World War II. A highly respected group of teachers took personal interest and together found creative ways to encourage students like Jack through academic and personal ups and downs. just a couple of examples we'll mention. In ninth grade, when Professor C.T. Baldwin saw Jack inattentively doodling in his textbook rather than listening to his lecture on history, he handed Jack a piece of chalk and said, "Go to the board and draw whatever you like, however you like, as long as it's something to do with what I'm talking about." Mr. Baldwin then resumed the lesson and had full attention from Jack, listening and drawing, and classmates listening and watching Jack draw. This became a class routine. Professor Baldwin talked, Jack drew on the board, and learning went on for all. English teacher Miss Etta Zimp took Jack under her wing, inviting him to draw for the student newspaper, as long as he came to her for tutoring to catch up his grades.
When Jack went out for spring football training in the 10th grade, Coach Villapig pegged him for the team in the fall. Jack was so excited about football prospects, he grew careless about academics during the wind-up of courses and exams. He did not pass enough courses, learned he had to repeat his grade, and, bitterest of all, found himself academically ineligible for football. He started in the fall, not on the team, but in the 10th grade again.
So Miss Ada came back to Jack, offering a tutoring deal for him to be on the newspaper again. She pushed him further. He could also work for the school annual, the Gold and Black, if, of course, he got his grades up and kept them up. Entertaining friends with his artwork. It was the carrot before the horse, the idea that he was going to be published and everybody was going to see it in a real book. That carrot always kept him moving. If you look in the program tonight, you will actually see one of the cartoons under Jack's page. It's very small. You may need the magnifying glass when you get home. But it was a cartoon he drew in high school for the Gold and Black. And it actually is as good as his cartoons later. It's amazing when you compare it to his later work. He had the instinct from that time, and his teachers recognized that. He would always remain faithful, grateful to his teachers for the way they motivated him. That fall, Jack ended up at football practice, not to play, but to sketch cartoon portraits of the football players. He earned the first dollar he ever received on his art when those sketches were published in a local advertising newspaper. Jack also got on the football field in formation that year as a new trumpet player on the first Camden High School band. But that and the dance band that he and fellow band players afterwards formed, that's another story, so we won't give you those examples right now.
And in that time, future plans and dreams were interrupted and delayed for Americans of all ages as World War II spread to encompass the nation. Jack and his Camden High School classmates became a living part of the greatest generation. The outdoor experiences and hunting skills that he had acquired in the outdoors right here in Kershaw County, as well as his classroom knowledge, went with Jack as a Marine to Parris Island and then to the Pacific War Zone. He fought in the Battle of Okinawa, the last and longest battle, lasting almost 3 months, and essential to America's defeat of Japan and the end of the war. Throughout the war, impressed by natural beauty of landscapes as well as horrors of destruction, Jack wrote and drew to entertain and communicate with others, and to maintain his own sense of identity, even in overwhelming circumstances.
The interest of the University of South Carolina in publishing the biography, The World of Jack Smurl, was to showcase the massive collection of Jack's art and personal papers that they now house. Glenn's and my interest as writers of the biography was to put in words a true picture of a living human being and his life through the evidence of his art, his photography, his public and private correspondence, and personal interviews with people who knew this amazing person. We wanted to bring back Jack to continue his connecting with people through his own words and his very special art.
We appreciate so much Jack's selection to the Camden High School Hall of Fame and his name being placed on the wall of the school community that helped to shape him. This honor will continue Jack's legacy of connecting with people down through new generations to come. May the influence of Camden High itself go on, with young people identifying their strengths, learning from their disappointments, and pursuing successfully their talents and dreams. Thank you.
Jack's wife, Betty Smurl, will be accepting this honor on his behalf.
Don't worry, I won't take long. It's typed in large print. Thank you, Joan and Glenn, and thank you, Camden High. Jack would be so proud of this honor from his beloved high school. Excuse me. Jack often spoke highly of his teachers in Camden High, who influenced his future in the field of art. You have heard about some of Jack's professional accomplishments from Joan and Glenn, but I want to take a few minutes to just help you get to know him. Those of you who knew him, and there weren't many in this room who did because he was much older, can imagine what an interesting half-century I had as Jack's wife. On our very first date, he brought me to Camden to meet his parents. Because he loves Camden, and family was so important to him. Because of his love for people, during our marriage, I never knew who would share our dinner table, as he never met a stranger that he did not adopt as a friend. He was always interested in people. He literally hated mistreatment of animals, which I suppose could be the reason he chose the dog with a broken tail as his artistic trademark. Jack loved nature, but he thought the female form was God's most beautiful creation. During his early artistic career in the 60s, I'd venture to say Jack was one of Columbia's first beatniks, sporting a beard and developing an appreciation for both music and poetry. Also, a health nut, he made jogging around 5 Points in USC popular even before President Kennedy introduced the activity to America. Living with Jack was always an adventure. But one of our greatest adventures was in 1970 when Jack proposed that we take a leave of absence from our jobs and circumnavigate the globe. Because we were young, adventurous, and frugal, we made the mistake of not using a travel agent. Therefore, we also made the mistake of visiting Cairo when Egypt was at war with Israel. Since we were allies to Israel, you can imagine that we were not too welcome. But regardless, we did get to see the pyramids. In Africa, camped at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, baboons thought Jack's snoring was a mating call. They were all over our tent. Another experience of that trip was flying over Vietnam, where our brave American soldiers, including our own Glenn and Abnett, were at battle. What a sobering experience that was. In Tokyo, we ate and slept on the floor in a Japanese ryokan because Jack had read that the Japanese themselves preferred these small hotels. They were much more expensive than the Hilton. We spent time in the South Pacific, which was beautiful, and where Jack revisited Okinawa. He was a Marine stationed there in World War II. Jack's Camden High School French came in handy in Paris, and his talent to illustrate was very helpful in countries where communication was difficult. Of course, we visited art museums wherever we were. All in all, we had an exciting, very memorable 3 months of travel abroad, all because of Jack's adventurous spirit. Before I conclude, however, I would be remiss if I did not mention how much Jack enjoyed his career at the state record newspapers as their very first staff artist. His 35-plus years there led to his being an inaugural honoree in the State Record Hall of Fame. He was also, he always said he could have made more money in New York, but he preferred to live in the South, closer to his home. His work with the state earned him a great fan club throughout South Carolina. School children delighted in visiting him at the state. No matter the deadline for his illustrations, he would stop and spend time with them and encourage them. He was always willing to share his talent with anyone who showed interest in what he was doing. I could go on and on about my favorite subject and one of Camden's very talented sons, but I hope through these brief comments you got the gist of what I'm attempting to convey about Jack and the special man he was. From the bottom of my heart, Camden High School, thank you so much for honoring him in this way.
Sure, people have to move things down a little bit. Good evening, everyone. It is indeed my honor to be here tonight to talk about my dear friend, Tony Whitaker. I simply say to all of you in the class of 2019, congratulations, you are so deserving. Tony Whitaker and I go back many, many years ago, as many as 50 years. That's a long time. I worked for her father at Whitaker's drugstore, downtown Camden, South Carolina. It is by all means that Tony and I have history. Tony would follow me around in that drugstore. Everywhere I moved, there was Tony. Tony was younger than I. But if I moved to the right, there was Tony. If I moved to the left, there was Tony. We had a great time at the drugstore. Tony now lives in Houston, Texas, but she never forgets home. She always called me. Now, my husband is very quiet and very easygoing. But when he sees that name comes across the TV, if you have direct TV, and it says Tony Whitaker, he simply moves. If we're in the bedroom talking, he moves to the family room, to the den. If we're in the den, he moves to the bedroom, because he simply knows that is going to be a 2 to 3 hour conversation. But Tony knew from the very beginning she was going to be a designer. Now, it's a difference between a button sewer or stitching. I just can sew buttons on a dress or a jacket. Even when my sister, who was a seamstress in Camden and had her own business, Shirley, my husband didn't even trust me. He would go to Shirley. I said, well, I can take up him a pair of pants. He said, that's okay. I'll take it to Shirley. So that was fine with me. So the other day, my nephew, who followed me, he was very young when he was born. I was still working in the drugstore. So he called me. They do not use my entire name. They said Marg. So he said, Auntie Marg, what are you all going to do this weekend? I said, well, Thursday night we have to go to Camden High, and I shared with him what it's going to be all be about. And he said, is that Dr. Whitaker's daughter, the drugstore where I used to follow you and cry to follow you? I said, that's exactly right. So I said, go on the internet. And he went on the internet. He said, oh, I see her, Auntie Marg. Ooh, he says a lot of things on there by Tony Whitaker. And I said, well, go ahead and look up Margaret Lawhorn. He looked on the internet. He said, Auntie Marg, only thing I can see is Margaret Lawhorn in Ridgeway. Then I see Margaret Clyburn Lawhorn, related to James Lawhorn, Eric Lawhorn, Marcus Lawhorn, Eugene Lawhorn. I said, that's it? He said, you want to know any more information about you? You have to pay $19.95. I said, okay, so much of that. So her parents owned the drugstore, and we always had a good timing there. So Tony and I will be looking out the window, especially on Saturdays, because there's more action downtown on Saturdays than any other time of the week. So we would be in the window and be looking at the folks and just having us a good time, or even reading the magazines from the magazine rack. But it was punctual. Every Saturday at 1 o'clock, no later than 1:01, that back door would crack. And that was none other than Miss Maddie K. Whitaker coming in to make sure the forces were doing what they had to do. And we would run out that window, and we would pretend that we were dusting and just getting the counters all clean. And she would come in and make sure she was an inspector. So she made sure everything was just right. But, Tony knew all the time. She would make hats and knit hats for anyone who would let them knit hats for. A friend, a cousin, a relative, anyone. Sometimes they were a little bit small and some were a little bit larger, but she would make that adjustment regardless. So when she went off to Syracuse, because she ended up graduating a year early because of her academic success. And, Miss Golden Black, so she did extremely well in school. So she said she was going to Syracuse University. That's exactly where Tony ended up going. But we knew, and we would hear things that she would share with me during our 2 or 3 hour phone call. But before Tony went on to school, Tony had confidence in herself. She knew and she made up her mind that I'm going to be an entrepreneur and own my own business. And that's exactly what happened. But before she went off to college, we would talk for hours and hours and hours about things to do. But it was my senior year in high school that Tony made me an outfit. You know, in the 70s, you had that maxi outfit. I had me a peach, it was peach. I had my peach slacks, and she made this maxi dress and had a little split in the front. It had little black buttons on it. So I went to B.C. Moore's and got the patent leather belt, and I thought I was sharp, and then it had some peach earrings as well. But every time I had to work after school, and every time a customer come in the store, Dr. Whitaker, they would say, "Oh, I like that. You have one today." And I said, "Thank you." But Dr. Whitaker said, "Tony made it." Well, the second time someone came in the store, he said, "Tony made it." It went on like about the 5th customer. Then it went on again to about the 8th customer. Well, I got so on like, The next customer came in, I walked from behind the counter, and I simply modeled for them, and I said, "Tony made it." So we are just so proud of all the things that Tony has done in her entire career. Rudy was the brother that was in the drugstore, but Teddy, the oldest child, was gone by the time I came into the picture working in the drugstore. So some folks would say to me, "I didn't know you were kin to Dr. Whitaker," because he always called us his girls. So Connie worked in the drugstore, and Betty, some worked in the drugstore. So Dr. Whitaker would say his girls. So by the time I worked there so long that some people thought I was part of the drugstore. So when Dr. Whitaker said, "This is my girl. This is one of my girls." So some people would say, "I didn't know you were kin to Dr. Whitaker." I said, "Yes." Some said, "I didn't know you were Dr. Whitaker's daughter." I said, "Yes, that's the one you didn't know anything about." So we're just so absolutely proud of Tony and her success. And one other thing about Tony had beautiful hair then, but you believe it or not, Tony did not like to comb her hair. I said, "Tony, you need to comb your hair." She said, "It'll be all right." So you'll see tonight, she still have that beautiful head of hair. And we are very proud to say, Tony made it. To God be the glory and blessings to her and to all of the recipients of the class of 2019.
Well, I didn't bring a speech either. I have to speak from the heart as well. But growing up in that drugstore was my opportunity to be a designer. My dad gave me a counter, showcase, and I think I invented voguing because I stood in that window and would model and pose as the people walked by. And when I got ready to start thinking about what I wanted to be, my dad was very adamant. "I want you to go to Fisk University. They make the best Negro school teachers in the country." I said, "Dad, I don't want to be a school teacher." And I was always creating and making things, and I don't know why I'm nervous. I'm never nervous. But Mom said, "Honey, you're just going to have to let her go. She's not going to be a school teacher." And I don't even know that I would think she was my daughter if I hadn't actually given birth to her, because I was just sort of always doing stuff creative. I'm glad I followed my dream, because at a young age, when I moved to Houston, I was 25, I kept walking around Houston, and I found this area called Rice University in the village, and I found a little shop. Guy let me have it for $100. It was probably 100 square feet, but it had enough room for me to have a sewing machine, a mirror, and an ironing board. And I made my first, or met my first client by going to all of the little fabric stores around and soliciting my wares. One client referred another client, another client, another client, another client. The next thing I knew, there was a shop that was next to a drugstore. And I went in, and it was just like my dad's store. I said, "I want that space next door." It's like, honey, do you know how much that space cost? I said, well, just give me a try. I can do this. I said, and if I'm late, you can put me out. I said, I swear to God, I will not be late for 6 months. I was late on the 7th month. But his name was George Sakaris. He was my other dad. He gave me, a young black girl, an opportunity to have a shop, store in mainstream Houston, Rice Village, and I stayed there until my mom came to live with me and I was forced to close because I wanted to take care of her more than I wanted that shop. My brother is here with me tonight, and Margaret talking about it, she forgot to mention that he was right back there, but if Teddy would raise his hand, sort of, okay. But I have always done what has made me happy. If I could share any of that to anyone, follow your own heartbeat. I believe that God tells you what's your right path, and when you do what you love more than anything else in this world, you are going to be a success. You are definitely going to be a success. I have been so blessed. I have done everything in this world I have wanted to do, except get married and have kids. And my proudest moment was one of my garments is now in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian African American Museum. So I will forever be remembered somewhere. This particular award I'm going to dedicate to my dad, who owned Whitaker's Drugstore, fondly called Doc, and who I feel has never gotten the recognition that he deserved because of all of the people he has helped. He helped send to school. He was able to provide jobs when nobody else would hire us. And I, in turn, did the very same thing when I opened my stores. I provided jobs. I teach. I taught at Texas Southern for over 25 years. And it's a way of giving back. And so, Dad, I accept this for you. And Mom, the strength to tell him, you just gotta let her go, honey.
Miss Margaret, I have to raise this just a little bit. 6 feet. So there is a little thought about being last. I sit there and hear all these wonderful speeches, and I'm wondering, should I have added that? Oh, should I change that? Oh, I didn't add that. So hopefully this will be full, sufficient, and well-rounded to honor the person that I'm up here for, and that's my mother. So I'm here with my niece, my cousins, my brothers, my aunts, my sisters, my nephew-in-law, my sister-in-laws, and my children to honor and represent my mother, Sarah Barbara Wilkes. Also, I'd like to first start off and say that my sister, Shelley Fox, and also Robert Mays both nominated my mother for this wonderful award. So we thank y'all for that. My mom, our mother, Sarah Barbara Hegler Wilkes, is a giver and a servant and has a heart for God. It's because she was designed that way before she was even in her mother's womb. This is a great scripture that says, a man plans his ways, but God directs our steps. So when she started at USC, she started off being an accountant. But then God directed her steps and her path changed to become a PE teacher. So I always thought of my mother as a pioneer. And the reason why the Lord directed her steps and changed that, because she's been a pioneer for coaches, for women's sports, and for many other avenues and other areas in the state of South Carolina. If you're familiar with starting something new or farming or plowing, it is not an easy task. It takes perseverance. It takes standing strong against persecution. It takes standing strong and being different for what the norm might be. But she stood strong, and she walked the walk of being first in many things. A pioneer she was that didn't stop, but continued to clear the path, and then went back to fertilize it and add more water so it would grow and continue to grow deep roots. Barbara Wilkes, our mother, was the only charter female member for cross-country track Coaches Association. She's the only female coach at Bear Cab, Mount Pisgah, North Central High for approximately 25 years. She's the first female athletic director in the state of South Carolina, and other awards that she holds as well as being the first female. My mother, by design, is a giver and has a servant's heart. She is much more, though, than an athlete. She's a mom, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, an aunt, and a big sister. She has had many seasons through her life, and one of her seasons, she ventured off into the horses, which later in life led her to purchase a farm, which now hosts several horses and has been transformed into a horse farm, which my brother takes care of and holds many horse events, I guess you would call there. It's called Timber Creek Farm. She also has a bit of a flair of dance. So if you know my mother, she loves to dance. She didn't get to take dance as a young child, but she has a heart for shag, and shag is South Carolina state dance. So she taught herself how to do the man's step because she wanted to teach. So she taught herself the man's step so she could lead and be a teacher of shag lessons. So she teaches here still at her young, youthful age, as at the venue and also at my business called Passages. So if you would like to take shag lessons, please give us a call and we'll be sure to book you. As a young girl, my mother was also, I believe, a great example for her sister. And my Aunt Lynn, who is here, would talk to me and tell me nice things and good things about my mom when she went off to Newberry College, and that's one of the reasons why my aunt went to Newberry College. Mother has always been a bit adventurous and loves to travel. One of her most interesting adventures is probably the one that is most astonishing to her children, is when she and Barbara Tyler had decided to go and support a fellow AD, John Carlisle. He was inducted into the National AAA in Anaheim, California. She spent 19 days on the road, which knocked off one of her bucket list items. But what really stood out, and I thought, how should I act this out to make it a little funny, but also just to, I don't know if you can imagine, her and Barbara Tyler on the road together. And so for their line of protection, they took their revolvers, how do you say, pistols. So I thought, like, here she was, like Charlie's Angels, if something were gonna happen, holding the gun, ready to shoot, ducking down to protect each other. So my mom, just being on the road that long with her friend, and her gun, that just seems a bit comical, but wonderful at the same time. The interesting part was that these two women, they were grandmothers, mothers, best friends, and they didn't let it stop them. They had a thought, an idea, and something they wanted to do, and they pioneered out, and they set forth, and they had a wonderful time with doing it. She loves her church, Littleton Street Methodist Church, and she continues to go on adventures with them, and she just came back from Myrtle Beach with a trip for them. My mother, to me, is a hero. I often tell people that I have a famous mom, and that she is a superhero. Our mother leads by example and not just talks the example. So I'd like to offer her a hand of applause and for her to come up. And if I could sing something lovely, I would sing something lovely.
Well, guess what? I'm the last one. So I did not write anything. So that means I probably can't remember enough to say too long. But I do want to say thank you to a number of different ways. First, to God. He has given me talent, and He has given me lots of different things, but I'll show you how it comes in. Next would be my parents, my mother and daddy. Now, some of y'all are old enough to know what Camden High Gym was like. It was a brick wall, and then a bunch of seats up here. Well, every time I'd go play, I'd sit down, get ready to go in the game, and I'd look up, and there was my mother and daddy. And I don't remember, I know they went to out-of-town games, but it was just significant to me that I could see them in this gym all the time. The next person I'd like to thank is Hewlin Small, Pop Small. He was my coach. He did the most wonderful things. He would fuss at me, and he'd push me, and I just knew I wanted to do to please him. I wanted to do what I had to do, and he took my talents and he developed them. But he not only developed the ball talents, he was teaching me things that I used when I became a coach, or when I became a mother, or when I had a family. I used these things in my everyday life, and it was just a wonderful thing for me when I look back on it. You know, you don't realize it at the time. You're just out there, you're playing, you're enjoying it. So I can really look back and think that he molded my life in many, many ways. I guess the next one I'd have to say is my family. And everybody in my family is here, from 8 years on up to and I think maybe if they would just stand up, everybody can stand up, and then I won't put anybody on the spot. Everybody in my family stand up. Thank you. I've been blessed in many ways. I was able to teach or coach. I have 4 children. I was able to coach them in some sport, in some way, and that was a blessing. I have a granddaughter here that she was my setter on my volleyball team. I now have another granddaughter that I've been helping with that's playing volleyball. And those things are wonderful when you go off and you help take them somewhere to play ball. I know that the one that's playing ball now, we went to Orlando to the Nationals. It's a big family, and I love them. The next would be Camden High School. That Buster was talking about how he was in school and how his friends were and all the things that he enjoyed. Well, I did that too, Buster. I remember playing ball and having friends, and we'd go to lunch and we'd come back. I said, "Come on, let's get back over to the gym." The boys were playing ball. I wanted to play with the boys, and I did, you know. And somebody would say, "You're gonna get all hot and sweaty." I said, "That's okay. We're just swimming. We're just playing." So I'd go play with the boys, and then a couple of the other girls started playing with the boys too. So, thank you, Camden High School, for this honor. I appreciate it. It's good to my heart, and I'm going to keep this short. Everybody's getting tired. Thank you very much.
All these people just thought they were last. I'm last. It's by design that we have our students sitting with the different groups of people. That's by design. It's important at Camden High School, number one, that our students get to see what it is to have a life well lived. That's important. It's important that our honorees and their families see what the next generation is like. You have laid a great foundation for the student leaders that we have at Camden High School. We have a lot to be proud of. As the honorees have spoken tonight, I've written down some of the comments, and so I would like to address these comments to the students. What you should have heard tonight: never forget whose shoulders you stand on. Look around the room. I don't think there's any accident tonight that the night that we honor the first African American principal at Camden High School, we also welcome the first female principal at Camden High School. That's not an accident. Make a difference in the lives of others. Be that person that people can always count on. Take an interest in others. Be humble. Be an advocate. Do what's right, not what's popular. Be a trailblazer. There are trailblazers in this room. People who made the way for you to be who you are. Be courageous. Be reconciling. Remember. Leave people better than when you found them. Have a sense of determination. Follow your dream. Do what makes you happy. Follow your own heartbeat. Never forget home. Never forget your home. Camden High School is special. It's special because of the people in this room, the people who have come before you, and the people who will come after you. Make your own way and leave this place better than you found it. We always end, or I end a lot of my speeches with my favorite verse: to whom much is given, much is expected. Be the leader that we know you are. Thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Johnny Deal of Bowflower Photography will be over here at the backdrop for our honorees to take pictures. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.